Brandon here from One-to-One Fitness and Fit Body Boot Camp. We already talked a little bit about how many calories we should be taking in based off of our goals. Obviously, there's a million and one different ways to make up that calories. It can be in a couple meals throughout the day. It can be smaller meals throughout the day. It can be extremely high in fats, extremely high in carbohydrates, high in both. There's a lot of different combinations, but there's only going to be certain ways to actually break down our macronutrients that allow us to actually achieve our goal. When we look at how many calories it took to, potentially maintain where we're at, a lot of us might be thinking, that's quite high calorically, and how am I supposed to not gain weight in that situation? And it's based off of eating properly. Managing our blood sugar levels is obviously a very key component to this. The North American diet, typically for an average individual, is extremely high in carbohydrates. You think about going to a restaurant, you're ordering pasta, you got bread, small amount of protein, maybe a sugary beverage, even just thinking about what happens throughout the day through our snacks and different meals throughout the day that can, again, be quite high in our carbohydrates. When we look at managing our blood sugar levels, we need to be looking at how much sugar we actually are taking in, where a lot of individuals may be thinking, if I need to lose weight, okay, the key to that is to be bringing down how much we are taking in of different types of sugars or carbohydrates, and thinking that that is going to be the solution. But when we're quite low in our proteins and our essential fatty acids, this isn't going to ultimately get you to where you need to be, because we may be bringing our calories down too low, and that could be obviously detrimental, as we talked about in the last video. So when we talk about carbohydrates, we don't want to talk about it as a bad thing. This is the fuel for our body, but we need to be understanding what actually happens. So for an individual, I have a kind of little chart here, blood sugar levels being on this side and time being on the other side, time being from when you took in that carbohydrate or the sugar, how long it takes to ultimately get into the bloodstream and start working. So within the first 30 to 45 minutes, if we took 15 grams of net carbohydrates, net being after you've taken fiber out of the equation, it'll take about 30 to 45 minutes to actually end up spiking our blood sugar levels. To give you a kind of a comparison to actual food items, a banana or an apple would be higher than that 15 grams. So taking this in, say it's snack time, we're getting that nice big spike of energy very, very quickly. You may be sitting at a desk, you may not be doing a lot of actual activity during this time period, and this is where now we have a whole burst of energy, the blood sugar is flying through our body quite quickly, being that we're talking about fruit in this example, it's very, very easy for our body to break down, enters the bloodstream extremely quick. Our muscles now are at rest and very, very lazy and have a tough time picking up this blood sugar as it's coming through the body. Or a lot of those stores might already have been full from the previous meal, causing this blood sugar to have to be stored somewhere. And this is where potentially we could be storing some of this as body fat. From there, what also happens is when we have a spike, we also have a drop. When we get that drop of our blood sugar, this is when we feel very lethargic, very low energy, and this is also where our body is going to ultimately start, maybe having some hormonal responses, start having some cravings, because all that it wants to do is get back to this line here. It wants to get back to a nice level blood sugar. Doesn't care how it gets there, but this is where we might be reaching for some more higher sugar calories and causing that spike over and over again, having that spike and drop, which can be leading to gaining some weight. Now, I talked about how we need to bring up our protein levels a little bit more, our essential fatty acids a little bit more to make up for how many carbs are already in our diet. This is where it's going to help out when it comes to actually managing our blood sugar levels. When we look at the different molecules and we break them down, we'll say, starches or carbohydrates are going to be the size of a baseball. We're going to now go to our proteins, which is a little bit bigger of a molecule, being the size of, say, a basketball. And our essential fats being the biggest, and it's going to be the size of one of those big, ignorant beach volleyballs. We're going to go into a room and we're going to pretend like that's our liver. We fill that room full of those baseballs, all those starches, and we fill it up, we open the door, that's that rush of the blood sugar. Now, we're gonna ultimately bring in proteins or fats into that equation as well. And what this is gonna illustrate when we open that door is both of them are gonna be coming out at the same time. Now we can back it up a little bit. When we enter in and we start bringing in our proteins or essential fats into the equation, what's going to happen is in the digestive system, it's going to take a lot more time to break down those proteins and those essential fats, which is ultimately going to slow down the sugar from actually entering our bloodstream so quickly. Now, as it's slowing everything down, that blood sugar is now going to be coming into our body a lot slower, which is going to allow us to actually have that energy over an extended time period. You know, that 2.5 to 3 hours that we typically should be taking something else in, it's going to allow us to have energy for that whole time period, and also make sure that our appetite is, we have satiety in that sense. As our blood sugar is coming back down, this is when typically we'd be taking in that next meal. So we're using those other macronutrients to help us stop this spike and this drop from entering into our body and causing the negative effects which can come to some weight gain, and obviously that's not what we're looking to do. Now, as typically our breakfast, our lunch, our dinners are mostly made up of very complete meals already. You know, our proteins, our starches, fibrous vegetables, they seem to be the meals where we do the best at. What happens here, say this is supper time, and as we're going along, this is now, we'll say supper is about 5:30, 6 o'clock, somewhere in that range. And now this is where we typically be taking in that next meal. You know, it could be 8:30, 9 o'clock. We probably heard on TV, read on the internet, don't eat after this time. They'll say it's 6, 7 o'clock at night because this is when we gain weight. Right, and it all again depends on what we're actually taking in at that time period. What typically happens is here we're letting our blood sugar levels come down because we didn't take something in after that, say, 3-hour mark. And now it's 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and we're starting to get hungry, we're starting to get a little restless, and we go to the pantry, and what do we end up grabbing? We have our crackers or chips or cookies, whatever it is, and we're causing this spike and drop before we go to bed. Now I know I am not a very restless sleeper, and I'm going to assume you aren't either. We're not going to be burning, boot camp calories in the first 30 to 45 minutes of us sleeping. But if we are taking something in at this 8, 8:30, 9 o'clock spot, this is going to allow us to stop some of those cravings happening later on at night. And if we're taking in something, it can definitely be a little bit lighter, but still bringing those macronutrients into play and combining them to allow us to have that energy dispersed throughout the night, where we're doing the most repair, we're restoring our hormonal levels. It's one of obviously the most important times of the day to get us ready for the next day. And this could be ultimately an 8 to 10 hour time period where we're not taking in any other food. And that's obviously why we have breakfast, breaking that fast. But we also need fuel to be able to carry out a lot of those nightly activities. So it can be something a lot smaller. For some individuals, eating right before bed, they may get a little bit of an upset stomach. This is kind of an individual basis. If you feel that happen, scale it back another half hour and see how that works, and kind of work from there in that sense. So this is why when you look at maybe some of the meal plans that we might have sent you, I look at the meal plan, I look at it like a blueprint, and I'm looking at it, and what I'm seeing is, okay, this is a protein, this is a starch, this is our fibrous vegetable. Snack time, this is a protein, this is a starch. Because ultimately you can switch out those foods through the Food Swap Guide. If you're using our app, obviously very easy to make changes on there as well. But I look at it as a blueprint showing you, okay, this is what a typical day can look like based on the macronutrients. What food is in there isn't as important. Obviously we want you to eat healthier foods more times than not, but if at the end of the day that equation works out, our macronutrients are where they need to be and our calories are where they need to be, we're going to start seeing progress. Hope this has helped. We'll obviously go through a lot of this too through the nutritional consult portion. If there's any questions or concerns, you can obviously let me know and just reply to this email. Thanks for your time.